got Ezekiel, Kresie with the ONIE project, and Diana Romano with OSU Extension. Ezekiel is a graduate of University of Maryland College of Agriculture and Natural Resources and is currently a master's student at the OU Health Sciences Center. He works at the ONIE project as a dietitian and research assistant. You can sometimes catch Ezekiel putting on cooking demos at farmers markets across Oklahoma, but more often he is writing blog posts on where to find farm fresh produce and how to prepare a delicious dish with it. He's excited to share his knowledge on nutrition and to help create healthy eating habits by working with farmers. Diana Romano is a registered dietitian with over 24 years of experience, currently working as an assistant state specialist for the community nutrition education programs at Oklahoma State University. Prior to holding this position, Diana worked as a family and consumer sciences educator, teaching community nutrition programs in both English and Spanish, and as the Farm to You exhibit state coordinator. She completed her dietetic internship and received her master's in nutritional sciences from Oklahoma State University in 2008. Diana earned a bachelor's degree in nutrition and dietetics from the Pontificate Xavier University in Bogota, Colombia in 1995. After graduating, she worked as a sales dietitian at the Baxter Laboratories and then as a food service dietitian at St. Ignacio Hospital. Part of her job teaching community nutrition, Diana has been interviewed by several newspapers, TV networks, both in English and Spanish. She loves being a dietitian and impacting people's lives in a positive way. So you guys go ahead.
Thank you. So I'm going to start us off by talking a little bit about healthy eating nudges, and giving you an idea of what those are, and then Diana's going to talk after about very specific nudge cooking demos and how we can do those effectively. So for the nudges, sorry? Oh, thank you. Okay, I appreciate that. So I'm going to explain what nudges are, how they work, what exactly healthy eating nudges are, and then how we can use them at farmers markets. So a nudge, to understand that, you first have to understand like choice architecture. So if you haven't heard what this is before, it's organizing the area or the environment, the context in which people are making decisions. So a nudge is any aspect of that architecture that is going to change people's behavior in a predictable way without them sacrificing any options. So they still have all the same options, but we're trying to get them to make the option to choose the option that we want. This is something that marketers do every day. It's something you see in retail sales, online. They just make it easy for you to choose the choice that they want you to choose. So if you think about this, like when you're at the cash register and all the options that are there, all the candy bars and the sodas that are available at the very end, like those people probably pay and have their options there because it's a prime spot. Also think about all the sales items. It's usually really hard to find the sales rack because they don't really care if you buy from that as much. But it's kind of a new idea for public health, for healthy eating. So we're trying to use those same strategies that marketers use all the time. So here's an example to get a better idea. This is like I'm setting here is a possible cafeteria, and what they did was they're trying to get people to do a certain healthy behavior, which is bottled water, drinking more water versus soda. So what they did is the gray squares were with the main refrigerators that were right next to the cash register. Those had only soda in them. They changed those to have soda and water. And they also added some water in like baskets throughout the cafeteria. And so they have the exact same options. The soda is still in the same refrigerators. There's just more water, and it's right next to the cash register now. And it's also just throughout the cafeteria. And it worked. After 3 months, the soda sales decreased, and the bottled water sales increased even more. So to get an idea of like how these work, we have to understand something about how our brains work. And so there's two ways that we make decisions. There's the automatic way, which is very quick. It's unconscious, we don't really think about it. It's parallel, which means that you can make two decisions at once. And it's also associative, and it's very low energy. So it doesn't take, we can do this all day, every day, all day long. And it doesn't require that much energy. So I think about this a lot when I'm driving the car, kind of mindless. If it's the weekend, I get on 35 north, sorry, East Coast. 35 north, and then I automatically start going to work. But wait, So these are just like the automatic things that we make decisions with. Like I said, sometimes they can fault us, like I can go the wrong way while I'm driving. And then there's the reflective one. It takes a lot more energy. It's slow, it's conscious, it's serial, which means you're only doing one decision making at a time. I like to think of this one when I'm making really big purchases, like a washer dryer. It's like I'm gonna be stuck with this washer dryer for like 10 years maybe. So I'm gonna try to make a really good decision and think a lot about it. So the automatic system works so well because it uses rules of thumb or biases to make these decisions. So here's a list of like some different biases that we use to make these decisions. I won't go into every single one, but like anchoring would be the way that you bargain with somebody, or like if you donate, like if you go to a donation page on like the Red Cross, they'll probably have a bunch of different prices range. If they're smart, they're gonna start at like 20, 50, 100. If they start at 5, people aren't gonna make as, large donations. So anchoring, the place where you start, is gonna influence the decision you make on how much you spend, for example. And biases, they're prone to faults, like I said. So a good example of this is these tables. If you had to guess, like, how much bigger or how much wider is the one on the right to the left, you'd probably say like maybe 3 to 2 or something, but they're like exactly the same size. So that's just an example of how our bias can lead us astray. So then I'm going to talk a little bit about healthy eating nudges specifically. So we can put these into like 3 different categories, and they're going to have an effect on positive diet changes and negative ones. So I'll go into those in more detail. Cognitively oriented ones, these are going to be the least effective because they're requiring the most decision making, which is the most energy. That's the reflective thinking system. So descriptive nutrition labeling, that's one. You can see that it might be more difficult because it requires a lot of analyzing. Evaluative, that's going to skip the step that the descriptive one is doing, and an example of that is like the red, green, and yellow stickers that people use to like tell people this is a go food, so anytime food. The yellow food is slow food, sometimes food. Red food is rarely or special occasion. And then visibility enhancements are also cognitively oriented. And that's things that are as simple as where something is on the shelf. So retailers, buy for that spot that's right on eye level. Kids will have it at the kids' eye level. And then transparent containers. If you see something, you're going to be more likely to want it than if it's in like a brown paper bag. And then effectively oriented, hedonic enhancements. I wrote enchantments, but so ONIE uses these a lot because like we want people to use our recipes, so we make sure that the picture's really good and the name of the food sounds good. It's not just fish tacos; it's sweet lime fish tacos. And these are just a little bit more effectively cognitively oriented. They're not using so much evaluative processing. And then healthy eating calls is another one, like make a fresh choice, or if you're at the farmer's market, maybe it says like, make a farm fresh dinner tonight, something like that. And then the most effective are the behaviorally oriented one. These are just they require just automatic. So convenience enhancements. If you have something that's grab and go, you're going to be more likely to eat that or purchase that because it's ready to go. It doesn't require as much work. So if they have grab and go items, pre-sliced fruit and veggies, maybe something like HelloFresh or Blue Apron, things that are more likely to cook that food because it's already in pre-portioned ingredients. Size enhancements is another one, which is even more automatic, I think, because it's just like if you go to a cafeteria and there's large plates next to the salad bar and like small plates next to the dessert bar, that's really going to affect what portions of those foods you get. And there's not a lot of decision making there. Like if you think of you yourself going to the cafeteria, that decision's already been made for you how much dessert, like kind of the limit of it. I mean, you still have the option, which is the whole deal about nudges. You still have the option to get 2 plates of dessert or get, only put like half your plate of salad, but is definitely influencing the decision making. And then to wrap up, so how we can use these at the farmers markets. So the farmers market is a great place because it has, it's a place where we can form the choice architecture. So it's already a great place. If they're already there, they're already more likely to eat fruits and veggies. That's been proven. And so ways that we can encourage even more produce sales specifically is to have events and kids activities that are circled around highlighting a certain produce, and then recipe cards, which is going to make it more easy for people to know what to do with the produce. Think about the display of the produce, so you want to make sure everybody can tell exactly what that is, because you don't know the level of knowledge. But saying, having clear signage for where the produce is, especially if, say, the recipe card and the cooking demo and the event is all about tomatoes, we want to know exactly where those tomatoes are being sold. And like I said, cooking demonstrations, we're going to go more into that, but cooking demonstrations are great because they give an opportunity for a sample for people to picture themselves making something, and especially if that cooking demo needs to highlight the produce that you want to sell. So it needs to be using ingredients that you can find in the farmer's market. And then another idea, this has been used in grocery stores, but it's more difficult in farmers markets, but prepackaged bags of say the ingredients from that recipe that we're using in the cooking demo, that we're highlighting in the recipe card. We can have those ingredients packaged and then make it much easier to sell. But this one's a little bit difficult because obviously there's multiple vendors and you're getting ingredients from different places, but it's just an idea. But this is exactly what ONIE plans to do this summer at a few farmers markets. It's use recipe cards, signs, events, promotion, and cooking demonstrations to highlight a very specific produce for that week. And we'll see how well it works. Thank you, and I'll let Diana get talking to you guys about cooking demos.
Thank you so much for being here. So my part is gonna be, about how to do a food demonstration, and like they say during the introduction, I work with the community nutrition education programs, and we have paraprofessionals around the state. They teach nutrition education classes, and part of the classes they need to do food demos. So this is something that I use when I train them when they start working with us. I did this wrong, I'm sorry. So the first thing that we always need to think about whenever we're going to do a food demo is, of course, the recipe, right? That's like the first thing we need to make sure we know the recipe, we need to make sure we read it, right? Just like when we do something at home, it's always good to read the full recipe because sometimes people just read some ingredients and then during the preparation you realize, you needed something else. So it's always a good idea to read the full recipe before you decide what to teach. And of course the idea is that it will go with a lesson, right, as part of our program. I know ONIE does the same and we do the same. We always try to pick a recipe that goes with the lesson that we are teaching. Also, it's very important, well, this part is more for our own paraprofessionals. We have a database where they can find all these recipes, but that doesn't apply today. The second thing that is very, very important is to think about the location where we're going to do this food demo. So always think, for example, today, always think, is the place where I'm going to go, is it going to have, for example, a good, light, Is it going to have a table? Am I going to have, a sink or a, kitchen close to me? And of course, if you don't have a sink close to you, the best thing to do is to, bring, for example, gloves. And of course, you make sure you wash your hands before doing the presentation. But sometimes, if you cannot wash your hands in front of the, participants or the people, you make sure you always wear gloves, just so they know that even if you cannot show them that you are washing your hands, they know that you are covering them, and it's gonna basically be food safe. Also make sure the participants are able to see you and hear you, and I guess that happened today. I realized, we're not gonna have a microphone, so I hope everybody can hear me. That's the point. And if not, please let me know, and then I will try to speak louder. Also, pick recipes that the participants can make at home, and also that they will have the equipment. So for example, for our program, sometimes our paraprofessionals come across really, really nice recipes, but sometimes, if they include, for example, I don't know, rice cooker, or, something that not everybody will have at home, we will instruct them to do the recipe without mentioning the rice cooker, for example. Just making rice in a normal, pot, and things like that. So it's always very important to think about recipes that people can actually do at home. Also, think about what you are going to prepare. So for example, make sure you bring everything. In this case, I'm very thankful, to Zeke, because he brought everything ready to go. Especially if you're gonna do a food demo where you don't have a kitchen, that you need to be washing, your knife or your cutting board. If you know you're not gonna have a kitchen, it's better to bring everything pre-cut. Or there are places where we teach our programs that they don't let us bring, knives inside the facility. So in that case, our paraprofessionals need to bring a lot of these foods, pre-cut. So that's why it's always very important that you are very familiar with the place where you are going to do a food demo. And of course, if I'm talking here mostly to farmers market, managers, of course you are going to know your farmer market, right? So if anybody is going to do a food demo, you will need to keep in mind that you will need to help them, for example, with a table, or put them in a location where, good light, where people can see them. Bowls, ideally, it's a good idea to use transparent bowls. What happens is that many times people tend to use the glass bowls, and of course this is dangerous, right? Because you can break it, and you don't want that. And then the plastic ones, sometimes they get, scratched, and they get kind of ugly. So sometimes if you cannot have a transparent bowl, you can have just a regular bowl, but then you can tilt it whenever you are making, your recipe. So you make sure people can see it, if it's not transparent, you can tilt it. Also think about all the mixing utensils you're gonna need, the measuring spoons or measuring cups, which of course I'm gonna show you these later. Sometimes there are little things that we might forget, such as, for example, an apron, or hot holders, or a timer. So it's always good to think, extension cord, because as you guys know, especially in farmers markets and in other places, they might not have, an outlet right by the table, and if you need to use a blender or a skillet or something like that, then it's always better to always basically have extension cord, with you to make sure you can plug in your appliances. And also serving items, just like cups or plates, forks, knives, spoons. Also, something very, very important that we teach in our program is that food safety comes first. So whenever they're going to do a food demo, the idea is that the food items do not stay in your car, or just sitting on the desk in your office, for more than 2 hours. Because you guys know, after 2 hours of an item sitting, in a desk or in a car, the risk of any bacteria or any other thing to grow on that food gets really high. So we always recommend less than 2 hours, to have the items. And of course, the idea is less than that, right? During summer, especially here in Oklahoma, that it gets so hot, during summer, it should be less than an hour. If somebody's carrying food in a car, it should have to be less than an hour. So the idea is basically to plan, right? If you're going to do a cooking demo, but then you have to do other things that day, try to put the cooking demo, either very early, so you go first thing in the morning, right? Or if it's like in the afternoon, you give yourself time to go, back home or back to the office, grab the items that you need, and then do the food demo. So basically, the idea is to always remember not to, keep it in your car for too long. And of course, make sure all the equipment is clean, right? If you are using a recipe that involves like meat and like vegetables, the idea is to have two different, cutting boards. And this is something that we teach also for people, in their homes. The idea is to have a cutting board for meats and then one for like produce. At least two. If they can have more, that's even better, but at least two different ones. So if you're going to do a recipe that includes both, the idea is to carry two cutting boards. And the same with like knives, right? If you're going to use a knife to cut like vegetables and then meat, that's not ideal because you can do cross-contamination. So what we suggest, always what we teach, is to have like different knives. And of course, if people are at home and they're making sure they're washing their knife and they only have one, it's okay if they only have one good cutting knife. But what we teach is to at least have two different ones. Also to make sure like the table you are using, is clean, that is always important. Sometimes we carry like our own, like plastic tablecloths, sometimes. But other than that, we make sure that the tables are clean. Also, wear, gloves, which I already said that. Something very important also is to, depending on the recipe, to have like, paper towels with you or like, kitchen, kitchen, now I forgot. Yeah, kitchen towel, paper towels. Also, if you, ideally, you should have a trash can available close to you, and if you don't, you can have, like a plastic bag or something where you can dispose the things that you are not using. Especially if you are using a lot of items, maybe have like a tray that you can take to your office and wash later, or to your home, also look very, like professional. We always instruct our paraprofessionals to always wear an apron. In this case, we have the one from Extension, and of course, ONIE, I know they have their own too. We always ask our paraprofessionals to keep, the nails short. Ideally, it's very hard to tell people like, oh, don't wear any, nail polish. They can wear it, but we always ask that they keep their nails, short, because that just looks, for this type of job, that just looks more, clean. And as you guys know, especially the woman here, you know that when you have long nails, it's harder to keep them like clean because, you have to have your brush and wash them like all the time. So, we always ask them to keep them short, clean, natural, quiet makeup, not too much. The same with the jewelry, like don't wear a lot of like jewelry. And it's very important to have the hair pulled back from the face, right? Sometimes, like if they have like long hair and it's hard to get it all in a ponytail, or sometimes if they have it short and it's really hard to get it in a ponytail, we recommend that they will use like a hairnet, if they cannot get it on a ponytail. Also like have good posture, speak clearly and slowly, use good grammar, avoid, for example, touching your face or your hair or your ears, or those things are not really good when you are dealing, with food, and people can see that. And also, basically, when you are doing the demo, just remember that people are looking at you, and that everything that you do, they will remember. Also, whenever you are doing a food demo, make sure you tell them what you are doing. You can for example, pass out the recipe, or you can just read it, but the idea is to always explain to people what you are doing. Keep it very simple. If possible, wash the produce in front of the participants. Like I said, if you don't have a kitchen, well, you can do this before, but ideally, if you have a kitchen, just do it in front of them. You know, because it just makes it more like real. Of course, the idea is that the food should taste and look good, right? At the end, show always the product. And, of course, always have, you know, plates and forks, right? Or spoons, so they can taste it. And for our program, we always use recipes that are easy to make, healthy, and that they are like low cost, because that's the population, you know, our target population is low income individuals. These are some things that I already mentioned while I was talking. So I think I'm almost out of time, right? So I need to start with my cooking them. And like I said, you know, like make eye contact, you know, smile. If something is spilled, of course, don't use it. If you drop something, don't use it. Because we don't want people to be doing that, right? Yeah. I know that sounds silly, but who knows? Some people might forget it and they end up doing things. So always leave time for questions at the end of your food demo. You know, enjoy the experience. And actually now, I think I'm just gonna do it. Are we ready? Can you please tell me how many minutes I have?
Plenty of time.
Okay.
Like 20.
Perfect. Okay. So I wanted to do this in front of you guys because, you know, this is what we tell our NEAs, our paraprofessionals. And the recipe that we are going to do today is called Market Fresh Pasta Salad. So I don't know, do you guys have enough for everybody, or do you want to pass them out? Okay. He's gonna help me pass them out. And actually, this is a recipe from ONIE, and like I say, I appreciate that he already cut everything for me, because that's the ideal. And like I say, ideally, you know, if you have a kitchen, you will like wash your hands there, but I don't have one here right now, so I'm going to wear my gloves. And I'm going to start, like the recipe is called Market Fresh Pasta Salad. So basically what we are going to do, it has pre-cooked pasta. It also involves broccoli, cucumbers, bell peppers, and it has like a little, oh my God, dressing is gonna be based with like mayo. It also has oregano, and it has basil, and it has the juice of 1 lemon, okay? So here, like the instruction says, prepare pasta, which is already done, and then in a large bowl, add the drained pasta, which I'm gonna do that right now. The drained pasta. Then it's gonna say to add the peppers, the cucumber, and the broccoli. And actually, these are already here, already mixed. I mean, in the same container. So this is really nice because it makes it really easy for me. And you know, like I say, sometimes you will cut all these foods in front of your audience, and in that case you can also teach them, you know, like how to dice something, or you know, how to cut it in like different types of cuts of different sizes. But I mean, sometimes if it's not possible, then so basically, if we read our recipe, it says here, you know, to mix well. And then once you mix well, it says in a small bowl, mix the mayonnaise with the herbs and the lemon juice. Lemon juice. So it's telling us to use, half a cup. I just want to make sure, you know, half a cup of olive oil mayonnaise, remember, it's always good to have an item like a knife or a spatula that you can, press down and then go like this, so that you make sure you are that's how you measure, basically. So you make sure you have that, okay. Then it says 1 tablespoon of oregano. And the recipe, as you guys can see, it says like minced fresh oregano. In this case, we are gonna put, dry oregano, which I mean, that's good too, to make substitutions. And then it also tells us the basil. Oops, I'm sorry, can you help me open this? Sorry, with the gloves it's a little difficult. So while she does that, I'm going to keep mixing here. Okay. So yeah, it's a tablespoon of oregano and a tablespoon of basil as well. So I'm gonna mix this and then I'm going to put the lime, the lemon. This is really great if you have one of these because it makes it easier. But then if you don't, then okay. So then it says basically in a small bowl to mix the lemon juice with the mayonnaise and the 2 herbs. And once you have this, the next step, number 4, sorry, it says to mix it, with the vegetables. So I'm just gonna put it in here now. So while I mix this, I wanted to ask if you guys have any questions about doing a food demo.
I do.
Yes.
I have 3 questions. Do you want me to list all the questions and then you answer them, or do you want to go one by one?
Well, I think one by one.
Okay.
Sorry, don't forget.
Okay. Do you have planned times for these demonstrations? So, for example, 2 Saturdays out of the month of June, you're going to do cooking demonstration. So you advertise that and possibly people register for that, or are these just you're going up there every market, you have a different recipe, and you're trying to get people to stop at your booth?
Does you want to?
For cooking demos at the market, we typically at ONIE we'll do it on the most popular market day, so usually it's Saturday. But we also do them on like Wednesday evenings or when we get markets open then. And you want to go during the peak hours, so usually at least 2 hours. So no, we don't schedule it with any like participants or anything. We just go when it's the busiest, and then that way people are already at the market, and then we're highlighting. All of our recipe cards that we use at ONIE highlight produce that you can find at the market. So then we're gonna do the cooking demo. People are gonna walk up. We're also gonna go around and hand out samples.
So probably a lot of repetition and repeating yourself, like if they're coming up
Yes.
in the middle. Okay. The second one is, what are the rules for as far as closed spaces? Do the cooking demos have to be done in closed spaces? Are they open? What are the health department guidelines for that?
That's a good question. And do you know the answer to that?
I'm sorry, can you repeat it? I'm sorry.
Yeah, what are the rules as far as cooking demos go? So let's say our farmer's market, we're under 10 carport, really. But I'm sure there's got to be some kind of rules as far as closed spaces so bugs don't get in. Are there rules for that, or could you do a cooking demo anywhere because you're not serving the food?
Okay, to tell you the truth, we don't have any rules regarding that, but when we started this partnership with ONIE, what we ask is that, we are going to bring like our own chair, but we are asking the markets if they can provide, like a table, a tent, basically a place where we know they are gonna be seen. But I mean, other than that, it will be very difficult to control, like for example, insects or things like that, because most of the markets are gonna be open air.
Right.
So regarding, I mean, that's a really good question, but we don't have a guideline regarding.
Yeah, so for the settings, we don't have, there shouldn't be any rules, but everybody who's doing a cooking demo has been food service certified, food safe certified.
So I just come up with another question. Are you offering participants to taste test?
Yeah.
Okay, so then my last question, sorry, and I think you might have answered it, about how long are the cooking demos, about how long are you guys keeping people's attention? You said 2 hours.
At least, yeah. We
Is
usually,
that for one meal?
no, that's going to be for at least 1 hour. Oh, for one whole recipe an hour, at the minimum. Most of our recipes are about like 30 minutes, so we'll do like, we'll start with one, and then that'll take about 30 minutes, or a little bit longer, because when you guys are demo, you get a little bit distracted if you're explaining all the steps and things like that. Then a little bit of time for cleanup, and then do it all over again. But we do it at least twice, but normally we do it 3 or 4 times in a market day, because the market's open for about 4 hours.
Yeah, those are all really good questions.
Yeah.
And
How much time, let's say you're going to this particular market to do your market, how much time does it take between the time? Let's see, if I'm not in the market, and you're gonna come and you're gonna do a demonstration, how long have I known that you were gonna come and do that?
That I'm going to come and do a cooking demo.
like how far in advance?
Yes.
Yes, that's part of why we are here, because we want to meet, like for example, some of the people that are gonna do the demos at your markets. We want to meet you today, like face to face, and that way they can have their contact information. Do you want to take it up or let you want to last?
Sure, yeah. Well, particularly for the summer, we want to do 5 different markets, and we're planning on doing just one cookie demo a month. We should know that that's going to be during the second Saturday or Friday, in the case of markets who are not open on Saturday, of the month. So we should know ahead of time unless weather. And that goes for any cooking demo that you might do with ONIE or that you want to do yourself. You can talk about that ahead of time, for sure. Yes?
So I have a suggestion, actually. I work in a grocery store and I do cooking demos there, so I'm not outside the market, but I'm finding it very beneficial to advertise like a week or 2 weeks ahead of time what I'm making with pictures on the internet. So like the regular farmers market, tell them what you're going to post next week and have pictures of how delicious it looks, and more people will come.
Yeah, you're totally right. Posting on social media in the weeks coming up to it is so much more effective than like, say, the day of.
That's a great question. And also, well, are you gonna tell them that the idea is to pick the recipe based on the, the products that they're gonna have like available?
Yeah.
So as long as we know ahead of that,
Yeah.
we have an idea of what recipes to pick.
Yeah, we want to focus on very specifically Oklahoma produce that is popular at our markets. And I'm not sure if that's going to be tomatoes, okra, probably not squash, because squash is already pretty popular. But something for us to figure out.
So, representatives from ONIE will come out and do
For the markets, it'll actually be OSU extension. Well, OSU CNET paraprofessionals we talked about, who've already been trained in doing cooking demos. And yeah.
Do we just contact our county?
No,
It will be to us today.
Okay.
Yes, and through ONIE,
Okay.
yeah. But yes, that's a very good question because we want to get to know
You are
you.
wanting to come out.
And so today will be the day where we can meet face to face and then share contact information. I wanted to ask, How many more people want to try it?
Very good.
Okay, good. On his
For recipe cards, yeah, there should be some kind of near where you check in or where the ONIE table is. There's a nice big frame that has a bunch of different recipes on it.
I think in our packet, there's a whole.
No, I'm not surprised with that. There you go. Is there any more questions about doing cooking demos or how healthy judges are?
I'm almost out of there. So that's why I wanted to do like how many more So I was thinking, I think because I finished a little bit ahead of time, I don't know if you want to like improve the ones that are part of the project.
So, if you guys don't have any more questions, then that was our presentation. If you are in, if you have been like contacted about doing cookie demos this summer, which is going to be a lot of the Muskogee markets, Muskogee Market, and Scissortail and Locke, and Mustang, then you want to come up here and meet with people from OSU, CNET, who will be doing those cookie demos. Feel free. And if you don't have any more questions, then thank you for coming along.
I guess we run out. We have like 5 more. Anybody else wants more pasta? We have 5 more plates. Did you say? It's the already side.
We thought there was.
Anybody else?